Utah is up next. And I was thinking a center for them if I'm them, but then I thought, I don't really draft on need. And I think it's Porter Martone. I would probably go with a Porter Martone here. You have him with guys like Tija Ginla. They don't really have high-end centers in the system, but saying no to Porter Martone means you're drafting, I don't know, like if you want a good center in this range that I think makes a real big offensive impact, I don't think they exist. Like you're going to get an Anton Frondell, who's a pretty good 200-foot guy, but I feel like he's at his best on the wing. I've got Bill Zonin really high, but I think 4 is way too high to take him, especially with Martone on the board. I just feel like you go with a good player here and try to add some centers elsewhere or focus on that elsewhere. A bit of a physical edge to him, but he's more of a playmaker, more of that sort of finesse style player, which I think Utah could also use a little more of. And he's also not small. And I think outside of Tija Ginla, they are a team that largely drafts large players by default, basically. Radim Murtka is the guy that I think in my gut, though, they might really look at. With Dmitry Simashev, that was one where I called it well in advance, where I thought, you know what, if you can find a guy at that size with that range and that defensive ability, you're going to have teams really looking at this player, even though he doesn't score a lot of points. Radim Murtka scores quite a bit, but I don't believe that that's going to be his future NHL role, really, based on his play with Seattle. I just think that Utah's going to look at a guy like Murtka. They have a guy like Simashev, who's a lefty. They're going to look at a guy like Radim Murtka and go, what if we have him and Simashev on a pair together? These two guys, one's a lefty, one's a righty. If things work out, those guys are going to be unstoppable. There aren't many defensemen in this year's draft that have that kind of a tantalizing upside to an NHL team. And Utah loves their big guys. They love to draft size. And for me, I mean, I could see him become the second most useful defenseman in this draft. I think he's a bit of a ways away from that. I certainly wouldn't rush him to the NHL, but I think Murtka at 4 after Desnoyers at 3 might make some sense here. For me, it would be Martone, but I think in reality, Murtka could be the guy they look at there.